Good evening and welcome to the Telegraph Journal and Rogers TV presentation of the local campaign candidate debate for the riding of Fredericton. I'm your moderator, Mike Gange, and we're coming to you from the Centre Communautaire Sainte-Anne in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Tonight's debate will focus on the federal issues in Fredericton as the people of the riding select a new member of Parliament in the federal election on Monday, October 19th, 2015. The order of the candidates has been determined by draw prior to the coming onto the stage. Joining me are the candidates Keith Ashfield, Matt Decourcey, Sharon Scott-Levesque, and Lou Babineau. Next, please welcome our panelists for the evening. First, we have Kevin Worrell from Up 93.1 and Adam Harras from the Telegraph Journal. Both are journalists for media outlets in the Fredericton area. The rules of the debate are as follows. Each candidate will begin with a 30-second introduction opening statement, and then the first candidate will then be posed a question from one of our panelists. The candidate will have 60 seconds to respond. Each of the remaining candidates will also have 60 seconds to provide a rebuttal response. After all candidates have commented, there will be 2-minute and 30-second moderated discussion on the question. All candidates are encouraged to participate in the discussion. As moderator, I will guide the discussion to the best of my ability. Tonight, we will attempt to ask as many questions as possible during this broadcast. As we near the end of the debate, the open discussion may be altered in order to ensure all candidates have equal time for closing statements. The closing statements will be delivered in reverse order, and each candidate will be given one minute for their final remarks. Let's begin then. First, let's turn to Keith Ashfield and his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Gange. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It has been an exceptional privilege to advocate for you, work with you, and represent you this past 7 years. I've been an active partner at the federal level for not only our municipalities, but also for our nonprofit organizations, seniors, students, and everyone here in the greater Fredericton area. In my role as Member of Parliament for Fredericton, I've always made it my priority to advocate for the people of the Fredericton riding, no matter what their political stripe. I have always been fair and blind to political affiliation when it comes to representation and advocacy. In the House of Commons, I represent every
Mr. Ashfield, we're going to cut you off right there and turn now to Matt Decourcey.
Over the past 9 months, I've knocked on doors throughout this riding. In Fredericton, New Maryland, Oromocto, Douglas Harbor, everywhere, people tell me that they are tired of mean-spirited politics. People want honesty, hard work, and respect. They know our community has so much to offer. World-class universities and smart entrepreneurs, Canada's largest military training base, and a rich cultural and artistic scene. We need a voice who believes in our community and in our people. I'm working hard to earn your respect to be that voice in Ottawa.
Let's go now to Sharon Scott-Levesque.
Good evening. I'm here as your NDP candidate for Fredericton because I believe the NDP is the only party that can bring positive change to our province and country. I'm a nurse, small business owner, mother, and grandmother. I've seen firsthand the challenges facing our healthcare system. I know what it's like to pay high childcare costs and run a small business. We need a new plan, a new government, and strong leadership. It's time for hope and optimism. It's time for Tom Mulcair and the NDP. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Lou Babineau.
My name is Lou Babineau, and I'm running for you to represent you in Ottawa. As a mother and as an educator, I spend most of my working life and my home life thinking about the future, my daughter's future, and preparing my students for their future. And so this is what motivates me. Ensuring that our community and that we as Canadians are prepared for the future. That our government is doing what it should be doing to ensure that it is the brightest and fairest future possible for all of us.
Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to our journalists. Adam, do you have the first question?
I do, directed at Mr. Ashfield. Mr. Ashfield, Fredericton-based Atlantic Hydrogen has been working for years to develop a technology to separate carbon from natural gas. It filed for bankruptcy recently. It has received taxpayer money. I believe you awarded some of that. What lessons do you think have been learned from the failure of Atlantic Hydrogen?
Well, certainly Atlantic Hydrogen has been was a very interesting company, very innovative, and employed some 16, I believe, high-paying positions. The issue of money, I mean, there's due diligence that goes into all of these projects. And the due diligence for Atlantic Hydrogen was no different than others. There was provincial money there as well, I believe, matching funds. And it's unfortunate. We hope for success from Atlantic Hydrogen, but obviously that didn't happen.
Now let's go to Matt Decourcey for your answer on that same question.
Well, let's just say that Fredericton is a tremendous and has a tremendous capacity for research and innovation, and we need to be supporting our innovators at the federal government level. We've got world-class universities. We have a National Research Council that is aching for federal investment. We have a forestry center and smart, high-tech businesses that with the right support from their federal government can grow and thrive, create economic development and real jobs, real well-paying jobs for people in Fredericton and for newcomers who want to come to New Brunswick and to our capital city. A Liberal government is going to invest in small and medium-sized businesses. We're going to lower EI premiums. We're going to follow through on Budget 2015's small business tax reduction, and we're going to develop opportunities for businesses to leverage support through different tax credit schemes to ensure that we can have the support for our scientists, our innovators, and our entrepreneurs right here in Fredericton.
Thank you, Mr. Decourcey. Now, Sharon Scott-Levesque.
Well, I think Mr. Ashfield hit it right on the head. We need to do our due diligence much better with any energy project or any new project. And we have to do a two-test. Is it good for the economy, and is it going to bring us jobs? And if it doesn't do that in your due diligence process, then perhaps we should let it pass. This is an unfortunate loss for New Brunswick, and we must do it better in the future.
Let's turn to Lou Babineau for your answer, please.
Sure. I think the lesson here has to do with a three-way test, actually. I think we need to be asking, is this good for our economy? Is it good for jobs? And does it threaten our environment, the water, the rivers, the lakes that we love, and the air that we breathe? And the lesson in this, the failure of this company, is just another reminder that it's time for us to be moving away from traditional oil and gas-based means of meeting our energy needs. It is time to move towards renewable energy sources. We know that these sources create 7 times more jobs per dollar invested than do jobs in the traditional, or investments in the traditional sectors of oil and gas. So with that kind of job creating potential, and with the potential to develop those kinds of renewable energy technologies right here locally in terms of solar and wind and biomass, why are we waiting? Why are we not moving now to invest in those sectors that are sustainable and profitable?
Well, now, candidates, let's go to a little bit of a moderated debate on what else are your feelings on this, and we open the floor to anybody in their comments.
Well, certainly, given that Fredericton has this research and innovation capacity, we have to ensure that we have an innovation strategy right across the country that can help our incubators right here, our entrepreneurs, our small businesses. We have to invest, and a Liberal government will invest into sector-specific strategies that look at cleaner and more environmentally friendly ways to help the resource sector in New Brunswick grow and do the work it needs to do. We're also going to support clean tech producers and ensure that our small business culture here in Fredericton is able to thrive, is able to provide work opportunities for Frederictonians, for people who come from across Canada who want to make New Brunswick a stronger economy while looking out for our environment, and also allowing newcomers from around the world to come and situate and settle and add to our economic strength and our cultural diversity here in this community.
Thanks, Mr. Decourcey. Anything else from the other candidates?
Yes, the Green Party is the only party that is willing to send a really strong signal to industry by shifting the emphasis of their taxation and of their subsidies And what I'm specifically talking about is raising the tax on natural resource extraction, large companies like the tar sands in Alberta, from 15% to 19%, so that it sends a strong signal across this country of what we think is the economy of the past and where we need to be investing money for the economy of the future in renewable energies that will bring jobs to local communities right here around us. It will benefit all of us equally.
Let's see if we can split the remaining minute or so between the other two candidates.
Well, I think that we have to look at, I know the Greens have this in their platform, but we do too. The NDP has committed to not investing in the big oil companies, not giving them subsidies. Those subsidies should be brought forth and should be used in renewable energy. We've just come out with a plan today to retrofit apartments to make them more energy efficient. So I think the Greens, we both agree that we have to do our due diligence on all projects and make sure that they're good for Canada.
Well, the Liberal Party has announced the most robust plan to look
Let's go to
after
Mr.
these
Ashfield
things.
for your final words.
Thank you, Mike. The small business is indeed the backbone of our economy, and new jobs created was some 90% in the small business sector. So we have to be cognizant of that all the time. And increasing taxes on small business is not the answer to move forward. In terms of innovation, research and innovation, there's been a tremendous amount of money invested by the Government of Canada in research and innovation. And I believe IRAP is close to doubled their budget in 2015. So we are very aware of the need and the future of innovation.
Thank you, candidates. Let's go to our panelists again. Kevin Worrell, I think you have the second question.
Yes, Mr. Decourcey, students have been saying for quite some time now that they are leaving post-secondary education with crippling debt, basically behind the 8 ball as soon as they come out of school. What will your party do to help these students?
Well, certainly as someone who grew up in this community and understands the importance of our educational and research institutions to developing our entrepreneurs, our artistic and human rights leaders across Canada, our engineers, our leaders in civic affairs, I know full well about how important it is to have proper access and affordability for students to attend St. Thomas University, University of New Brunswick, our community college, our craft college. And the Liberal Party will have a plan to address those things. We will ensure that lower and middle income Canadians who have a challenge to access post-secondary education will be able to do so in an affordable way. We will also ensure that there are more forgivable repayment options for students so that they don't leave with a crushing debt load. And at the same time, we're going to invest in real jobs for students. We're going to bring jobs working with the provincial government to New Brunswick so that our people who graduate from our institutions here can stay and work and live and play.
Perfect timing. Sharon Scott-Levesque, your thoughts on this issue?
Well, I know on a personal level about crippling debt. My daughter graduated from nurse practitioner with a $60,000 loan. So yes, it's very daunting for them. Many of them cannot find jobs and they're leaving New Brunswick. We cannot afford to lose our young people. So for years, the NDP have been trying to pass legislation that would require the federal government to properly fund post-secondary institutions and ensure that student aid reflects the real cost of their education each time it has failed because the NDP did not have a majority. We have to go beyond the institutions and also look at the things that impact student life, like right here in New Brunswick, bus transit, ATM fees, bank fees, affordable housing. All those things affect a student's life, and that's what we want to change. But also we want to invest in jobs, co-op placements, internships, paid internships, and apprenticeships.
Thank you, Sharon Scott-Levesque. Mary Lou Babineau.
I think that what we need to understand, and the numbers demonstrate this, is that making post-secondary studies accessible and affordable for everyone is not a cost. It is a long-term investment, and the returns are many, many, many-fold. I've been teaching in the university sector for 18 years now, and so I know that our young people are bright, they're creative, they're hardworking, and they're resourceful. And we need them to stay here in New Brunswick and to start businesses here and raise families here. And they can't do that right now with the average debt load of $35,000. So the Green Party is committed to immediately eliminating all debt load over $10,000, and we're committed to making tuition free by the year 2020. We have costed this out. It is possible, it is affordable, other countries are doing it, and they are reaping the benefits, and so should we.
Thank you, Mary Lou Babineau. And Keith Ashfield, your thoughts on this?
Well, thank you, Mr. Ganj. Providing young Canadians with opportunities, information, and education they need to be successful is essential. And we have invested many millions of dollars in education, whether it be internships, whether it be post-secondary education, First Nations education. So we are very much aware of the need for students. The Canada Summer Jobs Program alone, we've invested $4.5 million over the course of the last 6 years. And in this last year in Fredericton, we had 245 summer jobs for students. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a help. CASA is very much a partner with us. That's a Canadian Alliance of Students Association. The Prime Minister meets with them on an annual basis.
So we'll cut you off, Mr. Ashfield.
Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates, your thoughts on this from 30 seconds. Mary Lou Babineau.
I want to tell you one of the most horrifying things that I've learned in working with students about student loans, and that is that government student loans take out money at very low interest rates and then loan them to students at higher rates. So they are essentially profiting off students' inability to pay for their education. That needs to be changed immediately. And post-secondary education is the best way that we have in this country of ensuring that young people can improve their social and economic outcomes over time. That is the foundation of who we are as Canadians, and we need to protect that.
Other candidates? Mr. Decourcey?
Go ahead, Sharon.
I would just like to add that here in New Brunswick, it didn't do students a favor by repealing the Student Rebate Act, or the bill. You know, I talked to a lot of students that had depended on that. They went to school expecting to get that back, and poof, it's gone. So they are out that money, and it's a tough road for them. So that's a very unfortunate thing to happen under the Liberal government here in New Brunswick.
Well, certainly in this federal election, we're looking to form a federal government that will work with the province to address issues in job creation, something that has been woefully lacking over the last 10 years under Stephen Harper. Our commitment to post-secondary education, to students, to finding jobs and job opportunities for students when they graduate, to ensuring that education is affordable and accessible, and that repayment of debt is affordable and more compassionate for students, will be achievable. It will be a commitment that we can follow through on if we form government after October 19th. There's a woeful lack of opportunity in the student
Let's go to Mr. Ashfield.
Well, as I was saying earlier, we work with CASA. The Prime Minister works with CASA. We take their recommendations very seriously. The Prime Minister accepted, as a matter of fact, 3 of the 4 recommendations, one of those being mental health, student mental health, which is quite an issue today.
So let's cut that off. Thank you, candidates. Back to Adam Harras. You have the next question.
Ms. Scott-Levesque, Statistics Canada reported earlier this week that it's official. New Brunswick has the largest proportion of residents 65 years old and older. Knowing this, what role should Ottawa play in providing better health care for New Brunswickers?
Well, first of all, we have to get a health accord signed. We have to go to the provinces. Tom Mulcair has specifically been crystal clear about meeting with the provinces and devising a plan that's going to be good for all Canadians. That has not been done under the Harper government. You know, Mr. Harper has never met with the provinces or the territories. You cannot find solutions if you don't have a conversation. But with the seniors, what we are doing is we have to invest in long-term care, we have to invest in primary care, and we have to invest in more nursing home beds. There are other issues about that, but you know, it's a matter of making sure that seniors are getting the care that they need when they need it. That's what Tommy Douglas devised. Medicare for, everyone should have the health care when they need it. They shouldn't have to wait and not have a doctor. We have 7,000 Canadians without, or 7,000 Canadians here in New Brunswick
cut you off there.
without a doctor.
Thank you, Sharon Scott-Levesque. And now over to Mary Lou Babineau.
The role of the federal government is very clear when it comes to how it deals with the provinces and healthcare and issues like seniors. The role of the federal government is to make sure that conditions are equal and equitable across the country, and so that seniors in New Brunswick have exactly the same access to care and the access to services as seniors in any other part of the country, no matter what the numbers break down to. The first thing that needs to be done is that the federal government needs to sit down with provinces to renegotiate the formula that determines the federal healthcare transfers. Right now it depends on population base only and does not take into account the number of senior citizens that live in each province. This is to our detriment, and your MP needs to fight to have that renegotiated. We need a national pharmacare plan, which the Green Party has announced, that saves taxpayers $11 billion a year and will be an incredible help to senior citizens in affording their medication. And we need an aging in place strategy as well. It costs less money to care for people in their homes than in the hospital.
Thank you for that. Let's turn now to Mr. Ashfield for your thoughts on this.
Well, the transfers to the province of New Brunswick represent about $2.6 billion each year, $718 million through the Canada Health Transfer, which has increased by $319 million or 44% since 2006. So there has been significant investment in healthcare through transfers. They've increased each and every year since we formed government. As a matter of fact, by 6% each and every year. And even under the new formula, it will represent about 3% a year. So we are taking it very seriously. We're not going to attack the provinces and reduce their transfers as we've seen in previous governments. We'll continue to fund health care in this province and make sure that seniors and all people in the province have access to good health care.
Thank you, Keith Ashfield. Matt Decourcey, your thoughts on this?
Well, let's be honest about it. Stephen Harper's universal decision to change the healthcare transfer formula will harm New Brunswick's ability to care in a compassionate way for our aging population. The federal government has a role to work with the premiers, with the provinces, to ensure an equitable level of healthcare delivery right across this country. The Liberal Party understands that, and a Liberal government will move to sit down with the provinces to ensure that we can strike a new health accord. We've made a commitment to ensure that better support for home care and for care providers in the home is one of the focuses that a Liberal government will work with the provinces on after October 19th. We know that we have to work together to lower the cost of drug care, and we have to as well ensure that we have an innovative strategy. And I have to think our strategic advantage here in New Brunswick is our demographics when we talk about how we can be the first to innovate in healthcare.
Thank you, Mr. Decourcey. So candidates, we have about 2 minutes. Do you have any further thoughts on this?
Well,
Mr. Ashfield.
Well, the demographics are a serious issue, but one of the primary reasons the demographics are the way they are is that the young people have left the province. And we have to get those people back here, and part of that whole process is to ensure that small businesses, the province of New Brunswick, is focusing on that very fact. Everybody here on this panel, I'm sure, has heard door to door about children being away and their people not being able to see their grandchildren, all this sort of thing, and they want them back in the province. We do too.
We'll cut you off there. Thank you.
That's absolutely why it's so essential that we have a Prime Minister who's willing to work with the provinces immediately on job creation, on retention, and on bringing people back to our province. But we have an aging population that is English, that is French, that is Aboriginal, that is immigrant, that lives in an urban and rural reality in a close and well-connected place. We are the ideal spot to lead in healthcare innovations across this country, and my commitment is to work hard to ensure that the federal government has a view to working with New Brunswick to do just that.
Thank you, Mr. Decourcey. Mary Lou Babineau.
It does never cease to amaze me how many of the measures that we can be taking in order to better meet the healthcare needs of all of our people, but in particular our senior citizens in this case, are not only feasible, they also save taxpayers billions of dollars. We know that to care for an elderly person in a hospital bed costs more than 11 times more than to care for that person and provide the necessary support in the home. So why are we not investing in that area to save the healthcare system money when we know that it is in a crisis situation?
Thank you, Mary Lou Babineau. Sharon Scott-Levesque.
Well, I work on the front lines in healthcare. We need a national Alzheimer and dementia strategy. We have 750,000 Canadians suffering from this disease, and we will double that number by 2031. It's imperative that we have a plan for that. We need to recruit 7,000 healthcare providers and build 200 clinics. We have to roll back the retirement age to 65. We need to work with the provinces to strengthen the CPP.
Right. Let's cut you off there. Thank you, candidates, for all of that. Let's turn now to Kevin Worrell. I think, Kevin, you have the next question.
Yes, I do. This is for Ms. Babineau. It's getting tough to deny that there is climate change out there. Yesterday's massive rainstorm that we had is a pretty clear indication that our weather is changing. And some would say that Canada has had a less than stellar reputation when it comes to dealing with climate change. What can a government do to correct this?
Oh my heavens, if there's ever an area where the federal government has got to step up and step up quickly, it is climate change. Climate change cannot be treated as a footnote in our federal party's policies. It cannot be treated as an afterthought. It is the most pressing challenge of our time. It also, on a positive note, is the greatest business opportunity and economic opportunity of our time. Moving from a fossil fuel economy to a post-fossil fuel economy in renewable energy creates thousands and thousands of jobs locally, good long-term jobs in research and development, in production and installation and in maintenance of all kinds of new energy systems that rely on the sun, the wind, on biomass fuels, and on perhaps tidal down the road. So this is the direction we need to move into. In addition to seriously sitting down with other countries from around this world to rectify our shameful reputation now of having refused to cooperate to address at the global level the challenges of climate change.
Keith Ashfield.
Well, we recognize the importance of the environment to our environment. We've invested some $17.7 billion since 2006 in the environment through a number of different programs. And we have a sector-by-sector approach to reducing greenhouse gas emissions that it is having some success. So we're looking forward to working in the future on the climate change issue, and we know that our plan is working.
Okay. Matt Decourcey.
Well, Ms. Babineau is right when she says, oh my heavens, considering what came down from the heavens yesterday. And a Liberal government understands as well that in order to move forward with our economic needs and economic growth, we have to be better environmental stewards right across this country, and our leadership on the world stage has to come back to a level of prominence as well. That's why a Liberal government under the leadership of Justin Trudeau will attend the Paris conference and within 90 days sit down with the premiers to develop a national framework to ensure that we can reduce carbon emissions and help the provinces do it in a way where many of them have already taken leadership on this file. We know that Canada is big and there's no one-size-fits-all solution for this, but we need to take the lead at the federal level and ensure that provinces can meet targets to help us reduce carbon emissions across this country. We also need to invest in clean technology and innovation, and we can do that at our research and innovation capacity here in Fredericton.
Thank you, Matt Decourcey. Sharon Scott-Levesque.
Well, first of all, we need a prime minister that believes in climate change. Mr. Mulcair is an former cabinet minister in Quebec, and each year that he was a cabinet minister, he lowered the emissions, each year. So we need someone with experience. And to combat greenhouse gas emissions, provinces will be allowed to opt out if they need to from the cap and trade if their targets are met. And that's a good plan. No one will be forced. You have to work with the provinces again and territories. And also we will reintroduce Jack Layton's Climate Change Accountability Act, and because it was defeated in the Senate, which is why It's an unfair Senate.
Okay, thank you, candidates. Any further thoughts on that? We'll just open the floor to who would like to speak on that. Mary Lou.
David Suzuki did recently come out and after looking at all of the party's positions on climate change, affirmed unequivocally that the Green Party is the only party that is taking the necessary measures and has the necessary vision to effectively address climate change in a way that will not threaten our economy, but that will help to build it and to grow it. I think that's a very strong endorsement. And I would also like to point out that Elizabeth May is the only MP who has attended every single climate change negotiation since the 1997 Kyoto Accord. The only one, and on her own dime. That's commitment.
Well, I'll speak a little bit to what the Liberal Party intends to do, and that, again, is work with the provinces to ensure that we have a national framework where we can meet the targets that we set on carbon emission reduction. We were almost there and set up on the right path when Stéphane Dion was Environment Minister, someone who Elizabeth May said was the best Environment Minister Canada has ever had. He will play a prominent role within a Liberal government to ensure we get back to our place of global leadership on what is a tremendously important issue. The Liberal government will know that you cannot grow the economy without looking after the environment, and we can do that here in Fredericton given our tremendous research and innovation capacity. Our scientists, our entrepreneurs, they can do the work needed to ensure that we lead not just in Canada, but here in Fredericton.
Mr. Ashfield?
Well, we believe our sector-by-sector approach is the approach that has to take place. If we look at the electricity side, we've made a $5.5 billion loan guarantee for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador to assist them in the Lower Churchill development. That project will bring green energy, renewable energy to Newfoundland, and then to Nova Scotia and New Brunswick and the Eastern Seaboard. So we think
we're going to run out of time on this particular panel. Thank you for that, candidates. Let's go back to Adam. I think it's your question now.
Mr. Ashfield, Premier Brian Gallant has said New Brunswick's not receiving its fair share of research and development funding. He says the province is getting proportionately less than other jurisdictions. Is that a fair criticism, and should the federal government provide more to New Brunswick?
No, I don't think it's a fair criticism at all. We've increased research and development spending in this province manyfold from what we had in the past. If you look at the University of New Brunswick and the work that's going on there, University of Moncton as well, a lot of money being spent on research and development. Your earlier question around Atlantic hydrogen, a lot of that technology came out of the universities, and it's an unfortunate situation for them. But in any case, we are spending a lot of money in research and development, and I look forward to investing more in the province.
Thank you. Keith Ashfield. Matt Decourcey.
Well, over the last 10 years, New Brunswick has had no partner at the federal level in Stephen Harper, and that has to change. A Liberal government will understand that we need to work with our provincial government here in New Brunswick to ensure that we have economic growth, real jobs for the smart entrepreneurs and innovators who graduate out of the most innovative institution in the country, support for our skilled workers who need to go back to work, those being trained at our community college, support for our artistic and cultural leaders here in the community. We're going to work to develop an innovation strategy for the country, which will deliver opportunities for our incubators here at our Knowledge Park and our smart, high-tech businesses to take part in supply chain opportunities on projects that will be developed in New Brunswick and around the world. We have a smart workforce. We have every capacity to take advantage of innovative solutions that will help push our community, our province, and our country forward.
Thank you, Matt Decourcey. Sharon Scott-Levesque.
Well, I think the question is a good one for New Brunswick because it brings up the topic actually of deficits and how deficits don't work, how borrowing money that you don't have does not work to create jobs. We've learned that this year from the Brian Gallant government. We don't have jobs. And then he turns around and he blames the federal government for not investing enough in New Brunswick. We think that by our small business tax cut, innovation tax credit. That will help stimulate the economy, but our universal child care plan will also stimulate the economy by allowing more women to go back to work without worrying about the care of their child. At $15 a day, it is affordable, it will stimulate the economy, and it will put more taxes in our coffers.
Thank you, Sharon Scott-Levesque. Mary Lou Babineau.
If you talk to our entrepreneurs here in the Fredericton and Oromocto area, they will tell you that they are not getting sufficient funding in two particular areas they identify, at the startup phase and at the phase when they are trying to get their product to market. There's insufficient funding. This is not surprising in the context of a country that has put all of its eggs in one basket, and that is the tar sands. They have cut the corporate tax rate in that industry, and so there is less revenue to invest in other parts of the country, specifically for entrepreneurs and small and medium businesses. This is something that the Green Party sees as a tremendous problem, and this is why we want to restore the large corporate tax rate back to its 2009 level so that we have the revenue and the resources to distribute more equitably and to bring back to this area of the country, to our riding, to our province, to help the small and medium-sized businesses and startup entrepreneurs flourish.
Thank you, candidates. All interesting answers. This time we're going to ask you to speak on the issue for 2 minutes, but we have 2 minutes, but I'm not going to intervene. So you go ahead and whatever you might have to say further on this issue.
Well, startups in New Brunswick, Fredericton is considered the startup capital of Canada. So we have a great record for startup companies, big investments. We have a great program at the University of New Brunswick that deals almost exclusively with startup companies. As far as market goes, the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency makes investments each and every day in marketing and helping companies market their product here and abroad.
I'd like to point out something about research and development that's also been brought to my attention several times within my own work environment at the university and also within the community, and that is the unprecedented cuts that have been made to research in this country. Our scientists have seen their funding slashed and burned and eliminated completely, and that research stage is a really, really important step to getting to the point where we have entrepreneurial projects on the ground. When you don't have the money for research and people are being cut at the funding level for research and development, how can we possibly grow our small business and our entrepreneurial sectors?
And we see that here in Fredericton, given that our National Research Council is sitting half empty without the federal investment that led to a lot of the smart high-tech businesses that grew up out of past government's investment in their opportunities. We have every intention as a Liberal government to follow through on the small business tax credit, to ensure that we reinstate the venture capital tax credit to allow startups and small businesses to succeed, and also reduce EI premiums. But on a larger scale, we have the most comprehensive job creation strategy in the country. We are going to invest $125 billion over the next 10 years to ensure that we rebuild Canada's infrastructure, that we put people to work, and at the same time that our debt to GD ratio is reduced all the while.
We're going to cut you off, and we're going to give Sharon Scott-Levesque the last word.
Well, we need to rehire our scientists. We've committed to rehiring our scientists, our researchers. That's who we depend on for our data, for all of our energy projects. If we don't have our scientific data, then how can we make a good decision for any energy project or any business project? So we need that information, and we have committed to rehiring our scientists and our researchers.
Thank you, candidates. Let's go back to our panelists now. Kevin, I think you have the next question.
Yes, Ms. Scott-Levesque, one of the largest employers in this riding and pretty much the province is 5th Canadian Division Support Base Gagetown. Do you feel Canada should return to its role as a peacekeeper rather than being involved in military conflicts, especially those not sanctioned by the United Nations?
Well, Mr. Mulcair has been clear. He will pull our troops out of Syria. But what we have to be concerned about is where we stand on the world stage. We have to get our reputation back as a humanitarian country. We need to work with getting the Syrian refugees here. We have committed to bringing 10,000 by the end of this year, and then 9,000 for the next 4 years. So that's a priority for us, and we will get it done. Where Mr. Mulcair has said that where there's a will, there's a way, and we will get it done. And I think that's where we have to focus, is on peacekeeping. We always were a peacekeeping country, and we have to get back to that.
Mary Lou Babineau?
Yes. The Green Party is absolutely committed to returning Canada's international role to one that is recognized and respected as peacekeepers and as experts and effective experts in diplomacy. We used to be renowned throughout the world as effective diplomats, and that is where peace begins. That is how we help to avoid conflict and war in the first place, by negotiating, by building relationships, by looking for spaces where there can be openings for change and for agreements to happen. And that is where we should be investing our energy first and foremost. And having said that, the military also has a very strong and prominent role to play internationally as peacekeepers and as providers of disaster relief. And the Green Party is in favor of fostering that role and of increasing their funding so that they have the necessary equipment to do these things on the international scene and to do them well and safely.
Thank you, Mary Lou Babineau. Keith Ashfield?
Well, the world has changed since 9/11 and the ISIS threat, and on our home turf we have in Quebec, we had military personnel that were run down. We had the shooting on Parliament Hill. All tragedies, and our government is committed to supporting our brave men and women in uniform for the work that they do, and we've invested billions of dollars in support of our service people. The facts are is that prior to us taking government, the Army and the Air Force and the Navy were in dire needs of equipment, of just regular kit. And we've made substantial investments to help them have the right tools to work with.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith Ashfield. Matt Decourcey.
Well, this is certainly an important question about the role that Canada plays and should regain on the international stage as a purveyor and promoter of peace, as someone, a country that stands up for human rights and democracy building. But there's a much more immediate question that we face here locally when it comes to CFB Gagetown and the men and women who serve in uniform for our country and the veterans who are important parts of our community. This government, for all its wrapping itself in the flag and Stephen Harper's rhetoric around the issue, has absolutely absolved itself of its sacred obligation to look out for veterans. We need to do a much better job of supporting our soldiers, our veterans, and our families from the moment they enlist throughout their service until they return to civilian life as veterans. A Liberal government will have a comprehensive plan to immediately support our veterans with the reintroduction of the option of the lifelong pension for those who need it and support for the physical and mental health of veterans.
So to open up now this discussion, let's go back to Sharon Scott-Levesque. You get the first word on this, and this time I will moderate again and I'll jump in and keep you on track.
Well, since Mr. Ashfield brought up terrorism, I have to bring up C-51. This is a bill that Canadians don't want, and we will repeal it. Unfortunately, there is another party that voted with the Harper government on C-51, and really we do not have to choose between our freedom and our security.
I'm going to cut you off there. Thank you for that. And one of the other candidates?
Well, absolutely. And while I reject the politics of fear that Stephen Harper has perpetrated upon Canadians, I reject the notion that the state is coming for our rights and freedoms. A Liberal government will always balance our national security interests with the fundamental rights and freedoms of Canadians, and any suggestion otherwise is absolutely disingenuous. Back to the notion of how we support our veterans, we have to ensure that we look after their health and physical and mental health needs.
Thank you for that. Keith, your comments on this?
Well, the charter, Veterans Charter that was actually introduced in Parliament by the Liberal government and always considered a working document in play at all times. There has been significant changes with support of the other parties as well in that. The veterans have indicated that they too, for the most part, consider the Veterans Charter as working.
Thank you, Mr. Ashfield, Keith Ashfield. And now Mary Lou Babineau.
It's very interesting to me and very telling that in the lawsuits that veterans have brought against the federal government for failing to meet their needs upon return to Canada, that the lawyers for the federal government actually argued in court that the federal government, and I quote, has no special obligation to those who have fought this country's wars, and it is unfair to hold them to the standards and commitments made by a previous government. I think that's all we need to know about this government's attitude towards veterans.
Thank you, candidates. Interesting answers to this. We're back to our panelists now. Adam Harras, I think it's your question.
Mr. Decourcey, we'll go back to you. There are several mega projects on the horizon being proposed in New Brunswick. The Sisson Tungsten Mine and the Energy East Pipeline are two of them. What are your positions on those two projects, and are they needed to resurrect New Brunswick's economy?
Well, because of the policy decisions that Stephen Harper has made when it comes to Energy East and any other energy project, we see a complete paralysis and an inability of any of these projects to become achievable. People do not trust the process because of the meddling in the National Energy Board, because of the gutted environmental legislation that has been undertaken by Stephen Harper's government, and therefore all of these projects are absolutely stalled and they can't even have their merits weighed in a transparent and objective and rigorous manner. I believe in a process, a Liberal government believes in a process that is fair, that is open, that is transparent. We will modernize the National Energy Board, bring back a level of rigor to our environmental legislation so projects have a chance to be evaluated on their merits. They have a chance to have people consult, Indigenous persons with knowledge of the lands and traditional rights, community developers. Environmental science has to be a part of this, but we have to have a process that Canadians can trust.
Let's go to Sharon Scott-Levesque.
Well, the energy projects that you've mentioned, they have to go through rigorous evaluation. And unfortunately, Mr. Harper has dismantled the environmental oversight and protection. He's fired our scientists, he's muzzled them, he's let go our researchers. So we have no way of getting our information to make good, solid choices so that our future generations aren't saddled with bad ones. And we need to make sure that we're not blindly saying yes or blindly saying no. We need that information to make those choices.
Thank you, Sharon Scott-Levesque. Mary Lou Babineau.
On this issue, and particularly the issue of the Energy East pipeline, I think it's very clear. An Energy East pipeline that is going to funnel raw bitumen through this province, majoritarily for export, is taking this country backwards when the rest of the world is moving forwards. The trend throughout this world is to try to reduce carbon emissions and to try to increase the amount of energy needs that are met by renewable sources. Why are we being left behind when we know that 7 times more jobs are created within the sector of renewable energy? And Mr. Ashfield himself, in an interview with the Canadian Parliamentary Channel, estimated that we could have as many as 2,000 temporary jobs with this pipeline, and perhaps as many as 140 permanent jobs in the province. Why would we put our lakes, rivers, and air at risk for those numbers when we can have more jobs, local and good jobs, in the renewable energy sector?
Thank you, Mary Lou Babineau. Keith Ashfield.
Well, I think our party is the only party that supports resource development, and certainly the Can East pipeline. It's true that the pipeline will generate short-term jobs in the beginning and 145 to 150 full-time jobs once completed. But that's just a small tip of the iceberg. There's also the refinery in St. John, which will see expansion. And you look at a number of other spin-offs that will be generated from that very situation. Sisson Mine is another one. It's a prime example of something that should happen. And the whole issue around fracking, which you didn't mention, I think is important to to look at and make sure that our economy, we need this for economic growth. We need it to bring our people back to the province of New Brunswick.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're not going to be able to have a moderated discussion on that last point, but we can now come to our closing points, and we'll go in reverse order. Mary Lou Babineau, you get the first word this time.
Sure. As Canadians, we are blessed in so many ways. We have skilled, hardworking, creative, resourceful people. We have abundant natural resources. We have public education and healthcare and a public pension plan. We have values that people hold dear to. However, as I have been progressing throughout this campaign and going door to door, I hear many people say, this is not the Canada that I once knew, or I can't believe that I am seeing this happen in my country, when they're referring to things like Bill C-51, the cuts to scientists and their muzzling of scientists, and failed international leadership on climate change. Canadians want and they deserve a comprehensive long-term vision for the future. They want one that meets the challenges of climate change head-on and that capitalizes on the opportunities that this presents. We can have something better. It is achievable and it is affordable. We have the knowledge and the technology to do it. We know what needs to be done. And Canadians want their government to get to work and their representatives to work with one another to make it happen. If other parties were so committed to these kinds of ideals, don't you think we would have seen some of this materialize by now? They've had many opportunities provincially and federally.
Thank you, Mary
Vote
Lou
for
Babineau.
something better.
Let's turn to Sharon Scott-Levesque. Your closing thoughts.
Well, if I have the honor to represent you in Ottawa, I will be the MP that listens. We know Mr. Harper has failed. The Liberals say they will run deficits. I'm used to running a household budget and a small business, so I know you can't spend money that you don't have. Borrowing means more of your tax dollars will be spent on interest payments to big banks, not on investing in better public services like healthcare, senior care, childcare. If you want a more inclusive politician, I get that. I will be that MP. I will hold town hall meetings. I will be at the market every Saturday. I, along with Tom Mulcair, will bring a renewed sense of hope and optimism. We will bring in affordable childcare, a universal drug program, and improve seniors and veterans care. We are a progressive party with a real chance to change Canada's government. Leadership is about priorities. It's time Canada had a government that cares about yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon Scott-Levesque. Matt Decourcey.
Thank you very much. Thousands of you have answered your doors and given me the opportunity to listen to you over the past several months. In our conversations, you have confirmed with me that this community needs leadership that brings people together. I believe that I have the values, experience, and passion to be the agent of change that you desire and that we all deserve. My values come from my family, which have been a part of this community for generations. My experience comes from my work with vulnerable youth locally and internationally, and with the opportunity I had to serve our former Member of Parliament, the late Andy Scott. My passion to be your Member of Parliament comes from a belief that together we can make better decisions for our economy and our environment that will bring hope to our community. On October 19th, I'm seeking your support to be a strong voice for change in Ottawa. On October 19th, I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Matt Decourcey. And for your final thoughts, Keith Ashfield.
Well, thank you, and thank you to the Telegraph Journal and Rogers for hosting tonight's debate. Thank you as well to you and Mr. Gange and fellow candidates. I hope I was able to answer some of your questions and prove that I'm still a strong voice for Fredericton and Ottawa. I've served both provincially and federally for 16 years, and it has been an exceptional privilege to represent you in Ottawa for the last 7. While I've delivered in excess of $500 million to the riding so far, this election is about moving Fredericton forward. Going forward, my priorities will remain aligned with that of the municipalities, including the new Performing Arts Centre, green infrastructure, a possible pool on the south side of Fredericton, and the expansion of the Fredericton Airport. This election is about vision, this election is about experience, and this election is about what is right for the people of the Fredericton riding. I am beyond grateful for the support that you have given me for the past 16 years, and I humbly ask for your support on October the 19th. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. That brings us to a close, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Rogers TV and the Telegraph Journal, we'd like to thank all of our candidates, Keith Ashfield, Matt Decourcey, Sharon Scott-Levesque, Mary Lou Babineau, for their participation in tonight's debate, along with our panelists, Kevin Worrell from UP 93.1 and Adam Harras from the Telegraph Journal, for providing this evening's questions. Please remember to vote on October 19th. One other thing to remember, no matter how they line up for which political party, it is a public service that they're offering. For more information and scheduling on this debate, please check rogerstv.com, www.rogerstv.com. And for more information on how to cast your vote, check Elections Canada website, electionscanada.ca. Thank you, candidates. It's been a pleasure.